Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for accommodating us on semi-late notice, and because of that late notice, Scott can't be here personally, but we have him on speakerphone. So at this point, we brought you back because the city has put together another offer for you that we'd like you to consider. Heather's worked on the details of that, and so unless you guys have something before that that you wanted to share or discuss, we can just dive into that.
No, go ahead.
Maybe.
All right, so I'm gonna start on the sections that we seem to agree on, just to make sure we're still okay on those. So one of the items we have on the table is a change to shift differential. The change to the shift differential for fiscal year 2020 would be the midday cover shift moving to 18 cents an hour. That's a 3-cent increase. The swinger afternoon shift would move to 46 cents an hour. That's a 6-cent increase, and the midnight shift would move to 80 cents an hour for an overall 12-cent increase. Are you still okay on that one, or are there any questions?
We're okay.
So part 3 of the 6-part proposal is civilian discipline again. The union had asked for civilians to roll into the police matrix. We have no issue with that. The one language item that does need changed is items under discriminatory harassment, ADA or EEO. Any member of the police department who would have a situation involving one of these 3, they will default to the handbook. We were okay on this one. This is just the change in language. Part 2, the proposal is civilian pay. This is our counter proposal to the union proposal 8, exhibit U11, and the verbal union offer made at the table last time. So once again, civilian positions will receive the adopted hybrid scale increase in step movement as determined by City Council for all members. On the hybrid scale, for civilian employees at the maximum, there will be no increase. Civilian employees who are still in their introductory period are not eligible for a step increase, and no mid-year steps are granted. This is just some notes on pay for fiscal year 19. This is not included on the CBA. So in fiscal year 19, non-sworn or civilian employees in the police department received 2 steps. That was done because when the police department gave up longevity to help us get that ball rolling, they did not receive a pay increase that year. So that is why the 2 steps were granted last year. Sworn officers last year received no table increase, but they did receive a step as long as they weren't at maximum. General city employees on the hybrid scale received a step with no table increase. The only table adjustments done in fiscal year 19 was to the fire scale, and that was 1% due to year 3 of their contract. Sworn officer pay, which is Article 17, Section 14, pay grade changes. This is the proposed fiscal year 2020 sworn pay schedule. This is a 5% table change to a 3rd class officer at P40. So we put in a 5% increase to that step 1 on P40, and then it ripples through the rest of the chart. So sworn officers would receive that 5% increase to the table. That's an increase of $21.60 to $22.68. The percent increase between steps has not changed. The percent increase between rank or pay grade changes has not changed. And any officer at the maximum obviously would not receive a step. This is just the formulas that are used in that. We usually try to provide those to you. One item that we seem to run into, I want to make sure we're explaining it clearly because sometimes I'm not sure we're getting our point across, is when we talk about steps, we talk about the difference between step 1 this year versus step 1 next year. Anyone who's in a step 1 will step. So the value of a 3rd class officer this year going to a 2nd class officer next year, the pay raise is $2.21 an hour, or $4,605. That annual increase, there's going to be a give or take there of a few dollars, just depending on rounding within the system. The payroll system uses 3 decimal places. I only use 2 in Excel. So this is just some examples of how this works. Oh, can I move my whole chart? Okay, we're going to skip that for a minute. So for an example, a sergeant who is currently at a step 1 this year will move to a step 2. That estimated increase is just over $5,000. A detective or a corporal from a step 3 to a step 4, their raise is looking like it'll be just under $4,000 at about $3,947 a year. Any questions?
How does it look for master patrolman?
So, right, sorry, if you go back to where you were, wasn't that the increase that you had there? Is that reflecting like a master patrolman who's already maxed out?
If you're already maxed, you're going to be in column 7 there, and that shows what your increase would be. Yeah. This is the chart itself. Would you guys like some time to caucus?
Yeah.
We have Paradise Conference Room is available.
We on?
We are.
Okay. So as to the city's proposal for the language changes to Article 7, compensation, Section 14, and Article 18 that we've discussed. So the union is going to accept that offer, and I've executed the first page of that here. And the union's grateful for the city coming up with that, and we know that represents a lot of hard work on the part of everybody on the other side of the table, and we genuinely appreciate that a lot. And then Brandon has a few things that he'd like to share as well, just in terms of work that we feel like we need to continue to do.
So while we recognize this is a big step towards, getting us closer to market, we just wanted to revisit what we talked about at the beginning of when negotiations opened up this year, talking about the market comparisons and where we sit in that market. First, we just want to talk about the comps that we have here on the screen. With this increase, it's going to help get us a little bit closer to where we need to be. We'll exclude Boise from our comparisons when we talk about this, but at year 1 we'll still be 0.5% behind. Year 2 will be 1.7. Year 3 will be 3.3. Year 4 will be 5.1. Year 5, it jumps to 11.5%. Year 6, 12.6. Year 7 is 12.6% as well. And then at year 8, where we max out in our steps, is going to be at 14%. A little bit more locally, just talking about comparing to Idaho Falls, since that's been kind of the conversation that we've had over the last couple sessions. With this increase, it does help make us more competitive, we feel, on this side of the state with other agencies with similar size departments, population size, and with that call volume. So comparing specifically to Idaho Falls, at year 1 will be 4.1% behind them, year 2, 4.1%, year 3, 4.2%, year 4, 6%, year 5, 8%, year 6, 7.5%, year 7, 9.9, and year 8, 8.5. And so with that, we would ask that as we move forward towards next year, that we can plan for hopefully making some more adjustments to get more in line with the market average for wages in the side of the state.
And just obviously a couple of things. I mean, just to go with what Brandon was saying, the problem that the union really wants to solve is losing senior officers that do. I mean, so recently the department has obviously had a number of highly trained officers that have military experience who have accepted offers to go elsewhere because the pay for those senior officers just isn't as competitive here, and so you lose people who do things like active shooter training for the department. And when you lose a guy like that, well, now you don't have anybody in the department to train your other officers how to respond to an active shooter. And those are the kinds of things that the union wants to stop, so that it keeps the public safe, so that it keeps people within the department safe as well. All of that, again, the union's grateful for what the city has done, and notwithstanding that gap not being closed for the senior officers, they obviously need to accept this offer because there's no legal requirement for the current collective bargaining agreement to continue once it's expired. And so beyond what Brandon has addressed, just going forward, next year we would plan to probably introduce a pay matrix that includes the non-sworn as well, because we understand having a fourth pay matrix creates a little bit too much work for Ashley. We don't want to do that. Ashley does a great job and works really hard. But we also don't want the union to be in the position going forward where an offer comes forward and it really just benefits the sworn officers, and then they have to hurt the non-sworn in order to get what they want, or vice versa, where the non-sworn will have a proposed increase and the sworn doesn't get anything, and it sort of pits members of the union against each other. So with that said, again, we'd like to thank the city for all the hard work that went into this. Thank the public and the other unions around the city that have shown their support, and we look forward to hopefully a less combative and a more collaborative process moving forward, because I think that everybody here on both sides of the table wants the city to be safe and wants its employees to feel valued. So thank you.
Do you want to add
Thank you.
anything, Chief?
Anything?
I think the last negotiations, there were things on both sides that were a little bit contested. I mean, there was things on both sides that were said that probably either shouldn't have been, and I think that needs to be out there. I think we need to let other agencies know too how we truly feel about them, that they're not inferior to us.
Sure.
And I think that's
And I can address that if you'd like.
Please.
So obviously our last negotiation went downhill a little bit in terms of our communication, and I definitely made comparisons to other departments, which wasn't something that I shouldn't have done. It wasn't something that I should have done. The point that I was trying to make that I think got lost in the way that I said it was that the department that we have here is an excellent one. Very well trained, and they do a very good job, and they have excellent policies in place that protect the citizens' constitutional rights, and I could go on at some length about that. But to make that point, I didn't need to make comparisons to other departments because whether other departments have internal policies that I think are necessarily constitutionally consistent with the way that they should be, doesn't mean that those departments aren't filled with people who have a concern and a commitment to their community. And also, regardless of those internal policies, all of those people put their lives on the line every single day and are at risk to lose their lives every single day, which is a commitment and a sacrifice that deserves a lot more respect than what I gave it the last time that we sat down. And so to any of those, some of those agencies have reached out to me, and I sent them letters of apology because I thought that was appropriate to do. And so, and to any that haven't, I apologize without reservation for making those comparisons. We don't need to talk about how someone's not as good just to say that ours is very good.
Thank you.
I'll send your signed TA off to Scott, and then I'll email you over an electronic copy with both signatures.
Right.
Do you want a hard copy for your records?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, on our end, you know, there was some things said that, you know, that the officers that were in the room took offense to, and if anybody's in here that did that, we apologize for that as well. And so, though that moving forward, we need to move forward together,
Right.
as you know, and work together on things to make this better. I agree with that. So,
Thank you, Chief.
So it looks like we have concluded negotiations
Yay.
just in time.